Hello everyone, welcome to Mage TV. I am Mage. Welcome along. What a mad, turbulent world we currently live in. It's only been, less than 24 hours since I came on the channel to talk a little bit about the leaked plans for the Premier League to play games behind closed doors and showing what a fast-moving situation this is. The decision was taken this morning after Arsenal boss Mikel Arteta was diagnosed as having coronavirus that the Premier League is now suspended. It's suspended games with a date put in place of the 3rd of April. No games will be played before then, which means the first fixtures are likely to be played from the 5th of April onwards. From a Liverpool perspective, that means Manchester City is Liverpool's next game at the Etihad on the 5th of April. But of course, the big question is, will anything have changed in that space of time? Where we are right here, right now, is that sporting events across the globe are being suspended. You've seen the NBA suspended, the Six Nations is suspended, Serie A has been suspended, the cricket has been suspended, all major sport, with the exception of the Bundesliga, who have decided right now, and this will probably change in the next hours, they decided they're going to play this weekend's games behind closed doors, much to the chagrin of a number of players. It's an absolutely crazy and unprecedented situation. I was talking earlier today how I've been covering football. I'm now in me, sadly heading towards late 30s, and I've been covering football now for over a decade. It's been 12, 13 years since we started making Red Men, 10 years since I've been doing it regularly. And I've watched a lot of football in that time. And the more football you watch and the more life experience you have, the more you're generally able to rationalise things and cope with things because you've got frames of reference for things. And I have no frame of reference for this whatsoever because there's never been a situation quite like this. It's the closest to... I'm a big fan of like zombie movies and disaster movies and all that. And it's so many eerily similar moments. You know, Boris Johnson going on national television and saying that like many more of your loved ones and those closest to you are going to die. That's not meant to happen. That's not. He's meant to be just this blonde-haired buffoon who just says stupid things and waves flags, and he's now telling people that their loved ones are going to die. And look, I'll skirt the political side of things for the moment because we've got to kind of put our trust in the people delivering the information to us. You know, he was flanked by experts, he deferred to experts, and ultimately we're all going to have to defer to experts. It's very hard for me to rationalize a lot of this because, as I mentioned on yesterday's video, we all exist within our bubbles, and my bubble is very much a football bubble. It is. It's my livelihood. It's my life is based around the football. The football being cancelled has an immediate and knock-on effect of my life, more so than the virus itself. That will come, presumably, if the medical officers are right, we'll all be impacted by this in the coming weeks and months, more directly or indirectly in some way, shape or form, like a really perverted 6 degrees of separation Kevin Bacon kind of game. But yeah, right here, right now, it's something that has a tangible impact on my life, and it's hard for me to look to the future. And there's a lot of fear mongering around social media and around football because inevitably, whilst lots of people have got legitimate concerns in it, and it's right to have legitimate concerns when you've got, again, your Prime Minister going on television and saying your old people are basically going to die. I'm paraphrasing, it wasn't quite that bad, but you take my meaning. That yeah, there's plenty of people who've got legitimate concerns, but also what you've got is loads of tribal football fans who are within the bubble who I recognise are using it as banter opportunities. That's not great as far as I'm concerned because I personally can't be unbiased about this situation because I'm so geared up and so intrinsically linked to Liverpool and the success of Liverpool Football Club that I just want Liverpool to win the title. I would, if I was in power, I'd be prepared to risk people's lives. I'm stupid. I'm a stupid fucking moron. It's a good job it's not up to me because I would do anything to see Liverpool lift the league title. Obviously, I'm joking. You know, there are, as I said this yesterday, Bill Shankly said football's not a matter of life and death. It's more important than that. He was wrong. Life and death is well more important than football. Football is a pastime. It is meant to be enjoyable. It's not meant to be something that it's meant to cause loss of life. And God knows Liverpool fans know that more than most. So the big question is, what now? What next? You know, you've got managers and players coming out in support of this. I think football fans in general are very much supportive of this approach. And what that looks like right now is we've got a delay to the season. So right now the season isn't being pushed back. The games have been skipped over effectively. The games have been postponed, as they would be for situations like weather or whatever. We've seen this happen before. Games get postponed all the time. So they will need to be slotted in to the fixture schedule at some point between now and mid-May, when the season is currently still scheduled to end. That is the world that we exist in today and right now. And what that means is that maybe there's an option where the league needs to be extended by a week. Maybe you move those fixtures to the end and you play up until June, because we also know that the Champions League and the European competitions are currently suspended. If we reach a point where they might get knocked back, or they're not going to impact the vast majority of the teams that are currently under the suspension, so you can slot in those fixtures maybe up until, you know, the Champions League final is like the last day of May, or the first day of June. Anyway, it's right at the end of the month, or the start of that month. So there is time to extend the season by a couple of weeks to make up for the lost time, kind of thing. And that's, I think, ultimately right here, right now, is, yeah, that's the most effective and most sensible solution. There's no point in tearing everything up, because it's a very, very complex situation, which I will talk about in a second, and why there's been no drastic moves made right here, right now. The big issue with this is that we're being told that, and it was used, the sombrero thing, that there's going to be a peak of the virus, particularly in this country. That, you know, if they're talking that we're 2 weeks behind Italy, which is being the general consensus, is that we're only a couple of weeks away from it really kicking off. And the talk is that we might be actually 2 to 3 months away from the virus hitting its absolute peak. So what is 2 weeks going to make a difference? Really, at the moment, it's a short-term measure, but there's nothing to say, we're going, okay, well, it's 2 weeks. There's nothing to say the football will come back in 2 or 3 weeks, or, you know, whatever it is. There's a very real chance right now that that might extend. And what will that look like? And what, therefore, are your options? Well, the options are, well, what you can do is you can push the entire season back. And I've seen a number of people suggesting this. Okay, top line, that makes sense. The season's so far in, you really want to get it finished off and you want to get it sorted. So what can you do? Well, you push it back into the summer, and when it's ready to be played again, you just go and you play those games and you finish the season off. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem with that is there's a European Championships to be played in the summer. There is also then the Olympics due to happen a little bit later on in the summer. What does it mean for those? Because all of a sudden, domestic football is going to stamp right on top of the time that the Euros are supposed to be played. So, okay, so you cancel the Euros. Okay, brilliant, you cancel the Euros. Well, hang about. What about the football associations? What about all the sponsors that are involved in all these things? And bear in mind, I don't give a fuck about any of those things. I'm just making it clear that these are obviously the thought processes that people are going to be going through right now. There's millions and millions and millions being invested in these tournaments, in the infrastructure, and all the bits and pieces of organising it and getting it ready. You've got, you know, countless agencies around the world who've probably poured loads of their own money into all this stuff, and that'll have a knock-on effect down the line. Will they move it down to the next season? Okay, I think that actually makes reasonable sense. But again, there's going to be factors that need to be considered. And one of those that was brought up was a really interesting one, is player contracts. So let's use David Silva as an example of it. His contract expires at the end of the season for Manchester City. There's Liverpool players. Am I right in saying I think Adam Lallana might be in that situation as well? Not the end of the world, but all of a sudden, if the league's been played into June and July, there's going to be players who aren't actually under contract. Now, there's a rolling contract situation which will resolve that, but it is an interesting point nevertheless, is that, you know, what happens with like the likes of things like player registrations, etc. What does that knock-on effect mean for things like the transfer window? And ultimately, if you're pushing the season back, when does next season start? Or are you just going to say the league is suspended for 3 months, that's your summer break, and the season is going to end and roll straight into the next season, which would be weird, but that's obviously very much a possibility. Or do you then delay the start of the next season? You move that to, say, September, October. But then, of course, that then has a knock-on impact at the other end of things. And then this Euros that has been moved to next summer is all of a sudden in threat again from a domestic league campaign that's been pushed around the calendar and closer to it there. And one of the ones I'm seeing, which seems a bit big, but a possibility, and it's certainly being discussed from a number of football clubs and certainly a lot of fans on social media, is voiding the season. So what you say is, never mind, the season's all been it's been great fun, but we can't do the season anymore. just scrap it. It never happened. Everyone stays where they are. I'm never gonna ever be able to support that idea because Liverpool are 25 points clear at the top of the league, and that would effectively be wiped out. Everything that it achieved up to that point is absolutely gone. It's like, you know, skipping a year in the life, and you've got to start again from scratch. And, you know, this is why it's very hard for me to be impartial on this, because I can't possibly support that as an option, because Liverpool haven't won the league in 30 years. What if that was it? What if that was the chance, the only chance they were ever going to get? And look, I think Jurgen Klopp is a practical man. And if that has to be it, and that has to be the reality, it's something we'll have to live with. But the thing that's most heartbreaking, it's not even that, and it is, you know, that's really annoying and horrible and all that kind of stuff. Again, all existing within our football bubble, not the wider world and what it really means for human life, etc. But it's all a banter that's going to have to go with it. It's having to live in a post-coronavirus world where you're getting slaughtered every single day by Everton fans and United fans and City fans and all that kind of stuff for once again, basically an act of God. Steven Gerrard, we're not even at the end of Steven Gerrard. Steven Gerrard fell over. He just fell over in a game of football once, and we still haven't heard the end of that. Imagine if after all this wait and all the build up and all that, that's what happens. I don't know if I'll ever be able to watch football again. I might have to just walk away from it. I might have to give it up because I can't even imagine that what that's going to be like and how I'm going to feel around that. And again, it's horrendously selfish for to be thinking like this, but this is just my thoughts, just my feelings and opinions in my little small corner of the world right now. And I'm sure, look, if someone near or dear to me is affected by this, you know, my opinions, and I'm sure loads of people's opinions, will change as we start to see the realities of the virus world kind of unfold all around us, so to speak. But yeah, the only other one is that, and the other one that's sort of the halfway house of that is the kind of ending the season now. All these things have their own knock-on problems. Whether you avoid the season or you just end it now and say, right, whoever's in the top four is in the Champions League, whoever's at the top wins the league, whoever's bottom is relegated, or maybe you have it try to tell that to Leeds United. Tell either of those last two options to Leeds United. You're not getting promoted. Unlucky. I'm sure Norwich would be fucking made up with this world. Absolutely made up with it. But this is the problem. For every single solution to the problem, it opens up a whole new can of worms. It opens up a whole new world of problems that are going to have to be solved following on from all this, which is where it's unprecedented, mad. It's too big almost to wrap our heads around. Major people are going to have to make major decisions, and it's not like one person can make this. It's going to be tons and tons of people are going to have to come to a conclusion, and money's going to be at the centre of it. And, you know, the knock-on impact it's going to have to various smaller football clubs. You know, we're already seeing small football clubs in danger of going bust. We've seen it with the likes of Berry, etc. What happens? What happens if these small clubs aren't getting their gate receipts in this time? How do they function without income? We're already having conversations at Redmen about things like various sponsorships and stuff that can't be fulfilled because, you know, and this again, these are small problems, but you sell advertising space on a thing, and if we can't sell advertising space on a build-up show because there's no matches to build up to, and these are very small, tiny, again, in the grand scheme, inconsequential things, but you know, I exist in a teeny tiny fractional percentage of the world that is impacted by what's being knocked on to sport and to football. But imagine this on a global sense. It's mad. And look, the most important thing is that we all stay safe. The most important thing is as many of us are able to stay healthy as possible, and we're able to take care of the people around us. We're able to care for people who aren't going to have statutory sick pay, people who are freelancers who don't have the comfort of a regular income coming in, are going to are able to work. The people who are most vulnerable in our society, the mentally ill, people who are disabilities, people who are living alone, etc., etc. We're going to have to turn and we're going to have to care for each other in a way where we're being told to stay away from each other. It's fucking insane, absolutely insane. And it shows you, for me anyway, the fact that every one of these problems has got like it's like the bit in The Simpsons where they slide like 5 unthinkable options or solutions to a problem across the desk and just pick one, because they've all got really bad things that can happen as the result of them. And it shows you ultimately what it should tell us all as fans of football, as fans of sport, that sport doesn't matter. Sport doesn't come first in this regard. Life has got to come first. Taking care of society, keeping the structures of society together, making sure that people are healthy first and foremost. this is not a problem that sport can sort right now, because it is ultimately just a pastime. It is just all these things that I've mentioned, you know, player contracts and sponsors and fans, and even look, the survival of football clubs pales into insignificance on the scale of this kind of thing, which is just, as I say, it's mad in a pure detached sense. It's going to be very fascinating to see what happens, because again, there's never been anything like this in recent history, certainly, and pretty much in history. So yeah, I don't know what we're all going to do. What content are we going to be watching? What are people like me, YouTubers, not going to be making in the coming weeks? I really don't know. What is the landscape of football and sport going to look like? Are we all just going to be locked away in our rooms watching telly and waiting for developments to happen? Or it's mad. I wish I had more answers, but that is what it's like right now. They seem to be the most obvious solutions to the problem. But yeah, we're gonna have to wait with bated breath to see what happens next. Let me know what you would do. What is the most tolerable of the unthinkable options that can happen in sport right now? Let's keep it the flight to fancy. Let's not expand too much to worry about the wider pandemic and stuff, because again, there's nothing we can do about any of these things. So let's stick to the sports things. What are you going to be doing? What do you think the club should be doing? What type of content should I be making? If you want to see some gaming content, I'm going to play lots of Pro Evo on Twitch in the coming weeks, and more stuff, of course, on the Patreon, patreon.com/Mate, the Mate and Page podcast. Me and Chris did a podcast with Mr. Jamie Carragher. It is phenomenal. It's just over an hour long. He lifts the lid on all kinds of really, really juicy and interesting things behind the scenes of Monday Night Football, which you're not going to see for a while. His time at Liverpool and all kinds of things. Head over to our podcast channel, Matex Page. I can check that out. I'll annotate to that at the end of the video as well. But yeah, mad everyone. Stay safe, keep your loved ones close, stock up on bog roll if you can, but not too much. Make sure everyone else has got some, and I'll see you all soon with a video of some description.